Hello and hi, I'm Momita, your transformation coach. While we're exploring transformation with different guests from diverse backgrounds, it's definitely worth thinking, what does transformation mean to me? So here I have Mr. K Srinivas, who is actually sharing his perspective on transformation. He's a professional with over 28 years of experience in the automotive industry and part of several initiatives in the industry. Extensively worked on joint ventures, bringing in global technology to India in the automotive space in the areas of emissions, fuel efficiency, and vehicle thermal management. Currently, he is an executive director in a thermal management company, which includes engine cooling and cabin cooling products. Having started his career long back in 1994, he has been associated with this auto component group with a history of over 40 years in the automotive industry, with a portfolio of products in emissions, thermal management, precision machining, defense, and auto retail. The group has over 15 manufacturing locations and over 3,500 people. Personal life, he is a adorable father to two young daughters and a very, very committed family man. So let us listen to Srinivas today about his perspective of transformation and how he has seen transformation in his journey. Hi, Srinivas. How are you?
Very good, Momita. Nice to catch up.
And thank you so much for being a part of my podcast show, Rendezvous, the Transformation Story.
Always a pleasure, Momita.
So,
I've seen some of your previous episodes, and it's quite motivating to be there.
oh, wow, that's very encouraging to start with. So, first things first, when you hear the word transformation, what comes to your mind?
Well, I mean, I would say the transformation is a very strong word, quite commonly used, but yet I would say that, I look at transformation a little differently. To me, transformation is about your own identity. Right? It's how do you identify yourself? I think that's the very fundamental. See, I'm coming from the fact that it is about our own beliefs fundamentally, and then the beliefs is all about how do you identify yourself. I mean, as a person, if I am Srinivas, what do I identify myself as? Right? I mean, that has to be clear first, and then we can talk about transformation. Right, on a day-to-day basis, how do you identify yourself? For example, I'm so and so, I do this in the morning, I get up, I like to do this, I'm very humble, I do this, I do that, and all those things. I mean, that's what I identify myself with. But then then we talk about transformation. So now if you identified yourself as this, and then tomorrow you're expected to be somebody else because of it could be your business compulsions, it could be your own agendas in life, it could be your own goal in life. Then you need to start thinking about how do I identify myself as why somebody else. Right, that's the starting point. Fundamentally, how are we identifying ourselves is the first thing that we need to understand. Right.
I
Of course, we all talk about, if I start identifying myself or I'd like to identify myself as somebody else, how am I working towards that?
yeah.
Right. What do I need to work towards that?
Yeah, I think while I'm listening to you, Srinivas, it's like it's a very interesting perspective that and very critical too. Transformation does start with ourselves. And I love the way that you say that what is it that it's me, how do I identify myself? And then perhaps to a position B or to position C, what I want to become. Uh, while this is very interesting to start with, at the same time, uh, when you look at your own self as a personal, professional life, across these years, when was the first time that transformation came across you?
Well, I mean, that's not an easy question to answer. I would probably have n number of incidences. To me, Momita, transformation is practically happening every day. Right? I've been in the automotive industry for almost 3 decades now. Right? And I'm seeing things changing in the industry. Right? Of course, when things are changing in the industry, you need to realign yourself. You need to recalibrate yourself if you have to, be productive and, understand the expectations from the ecosystem. And if that is constantly evolving every day, I mean, the expectation is that you also need to change your identity every day, change what you mean and what you do and what you should be doing. That keeps changing every day. And if you're not changing yourself, or probably, realigning yourself, or call it transformation in that language, how can you even, be a part of the ecosystem if you're not adapting to the ecosystem? Right? So that itself, 3 decades of being in an industry, and I mean, being a part of an industry which is constantly evolving in terms of the customer expectations, technology, and everything. And, and if you're being there, growing in that industry, that itself is transformational. I hope it makes sense.
Of course, it does. In fact, adaptability and flexibility, I think, are very key to any change or any transformation. And to be aware that I need to adapt, to be aware that I need to change myself, I think that itself is a great transformation journey. Because most of us don't even know what to do, what changes to bring about within ourselves. So I guess your expertise in the sector and the way you have grown shows itself how open and how flexible and how immediately you have picked up. So I think I'm feeling a little curious to know what has pushed you to make these changes.
Well, I mean, it also starts with a self-realization, like what you said, the very thought that you need to, have a different identity. You need to change. I mean, that thought itself where is that thought coming from? It's a self-realization. I gave the example of, being in a particular industry for 3 decades. If I have to share an example from my personal space also, I mean, if I'm, today sitting with my daughter and trying to understand her future goals, and, the very fact that I'm there and I'm not trying to push my idea, I'm trying to first understand how things have changed in the education system from what they were maybe a few years back to what they are now. And I need to, first of all, accept the fact that things have changed, and I need to look at things differently and not necessarily push my ideas over there. Right? And when I start thinking, I mean, it starts with the thought, as you rightly said, the very thought that, yes, things have changed. In every sphere, that things have changed, and I need to, look at things differently, which means I need to change myself, which means that I need to transform. That itself is a transformation. And that's the reason I'm saying that transformation happens on a daily basis.
I like this simplicity that you're bringing into the word transformation, Srinivas, because most of the time when I hear my clients or somebody talks about transformation, always the feeling is, oh my God, it's a big thing to happen. And I love the way when you say it's happening daily, bit by bit, every change. One, I would say immediate friend, partner, I don't know what you would want to call it, but which comes about along with transformation is the anxiety, or is the fear, or is the emotional turbulence that, yeah, I'm changing for good, I'm changing for, I don't know the outcome. In your experience, how do you think one can handle that?
Well, I think, yes, you're right. We all go through those fears when we think of change, when we embrace something new, when we embrace something which is the unknown. Obviously, there is this inner fear that comes in. But, my experience is that, it's a very superficial layer. That fear is a very, very superficial layer that is sitting on our minds. You need to just jump that. And trust me, I mean, once you start getting a bit deeper, the devil is in the deeper things, right? So once you get a bit deeper into things, trust me, the fear is gone. We talk about when we put in place a very complex IT system. Currently, we're working on currently trying to bring in some AI into our IT systems. The current buzzword in the industry is chat GPT and all the generative AI and all those things. What does that bring to the mind? The first thing is, this is something completely, this is not my cup of tea. I don't want to get into that. Right? But the fact is that once you get into that, trust me, I mean, I've started, understanding a bit more about chat GPT and all this machine learning and artificial intelligence and how can we integrate into our business processes. And trust me, it's not that difficult. I mean, it's just that initial fear. And that's the reason I keep saying that it is a very superficial layer. One might say that the fear is deep within. I am giving it a different flavor. I'm saying that it's a very superficial layer sitting over there. Just break it.
Yeah. I think very concrete example, and talking of AI, and always there's a fear. And with my interactions with you, Srinivas, one thing that I've always seen you come across as very curious in terms of, you shared an example, having a conversation with your daughter, or you're talking of AI right now. So everywhere I've seen you very curious to learn, very curious to know. And I think that's a very, very essential quality for someone to be open to change, for someone to bring about transformation in whatever way he or she wants to. But I'm sure you have interacted with a lot of people who have these questions for you. How did you make it possible? Or what did you do? Or, what were the 2, 3 things that you have followed as a professional, which has helped you build this, this professional you that you spoke about the last 3 decades? I'm sure when you look back, 3 decades back, and today when we are speaking, the way you would have grown is very different. So what would you tell them? Maybe 2, 3 concrete things that if they start or if they follow, it can help them look at themselves in a little different perspectives, maybe in a little bit of change, and also the transformed self.
I think I'm not too sure, Momita, if I'm able to say 3 things, but one thing for sure, I'll say that I think the first and the foremost, and of course the biggest of it is, operate with the thought that things will not be the same tomorrow, it will change. Right? The moment we think that, next day morning, I'm going to take the same route to office and I'll reach office exactly the same time that I've taken all these days. Just don't operate with that thought. Operate with that thought that tomorrow morning could be a different day. You could face a different traffic situation. You could face a different situation at work, which means that you might have to think differently tomorrow morning when you get up. I think that is a very fundamental thing. People do say that, consistency is important and habits are important. I don't deny that fact. Consistency is extremely important. I mean, I can always say that I've been 3 decades in one industry. I've been consistent. Yeah, that's so. So that doesn't mean that people who have switched industries are not consistent. They too have been consistent in the way they've been, going about their professional career. But I would say that operate with the fact that things will change every day. Else, you always feel that burden, the fear, the burden, whatever you call it, that, why is it like this? This is not true. Everything is true. Accept the fact that things are different, will be different tomorrow.
Yeah. Very well said, very powerful. You mentioned one, but I think that's extremely powerful, that nothing is constant. Everything changes in every moment. Even this conversation, maybe the way we started and now what we are talking, perhaps could be very different. Yeah. And this is something that I'm really enjoying with all my guests, and where they are sharing very different perspectives about this entire terminology called transformation. So maybe a a trick question here. If you need to just pause and look at your own self, is there anything that you would like to change about yourself?
Oh, that's I would say a very straight and tough question. I would say that, but again, as usual, I would like to give only one answer, one liner, one point. Uh, you know, I would like to be my better self tomorrow in everything that I'm doing, be it my relationships, or be it my professional journey, or be it my, my networks, how I deal with people. Every day is a learning. Every day you need to learn and unlearn is what my mantra has been, Momita. Right. Every evening when I go back, I certainly introspect about about the day gone by. I mean, how did I conduct a particular meeting? I could have probably done it in a different way. What are the learnings from that meeting? I could have probably, steered the discussion in a more probably in a more effective manner. So that learning and unlearning is very important, and if I think one has to constantly do that to see how do you become a better self tomorrow, which is also kind of change that you are wanting in yourself, right? So everything is about, it is under the paradigm of transformation. Right. So if you don't learn and unlearn, if you don't introspect every day, how do you change yourself? I recall the example, very recent example, just 2 days back in one of my meetings, and I said to the entire team that every day each one of us is learning. We are in a new paradigm. We're talking of now electric vehicles, and expectations are different. The business dynamics are different. We're all learning. It's not that I'm the only person, I know everything, and you guys need to change. I'm also learning. All of us are learning every day. Let's be open to this thought that we are all learning and we need to do better tomorrow.
So, while I've said you always come across as curious to learn. You are, of course, you're giving me one liner, so that's crisp. And you did speak about consistency. Maybe I mean, we have discussed this, but let me just put it across again that the intent of bringing up this podcast, and especially the word transformation, is not everyone understands. And sometimes, people are also feel that, this is not a good thing to do, because why to change? As you rightly said, 3 decades, you are in the same sector. Uh, the idea where I come from is that transformation does not mean you need to keep changing fields, you need to keep changing jobs. Even in that one particular area, you can still be. And when you say you want to be a better self, that's when this question comes to me. How can I bring about, and I love the way you're saying that, yeah, we learn, unlearn, but not everyone is blessed with self-realization. Not everyone is blessed with even self-awareness and accept that I need to change. What would you tell them? How can they bring about change to grow in life?
That's again, I mean, you're talking about influencing others, right? If I understood that correctly, is it about influencing others to change?
It's about bringing people on the awareness level that if I don't change, I will grow, but my growth may be restricted.
Yeah, I mean, for that, Momita, I would say that the mantra that I have been following is, you have to create awareness. You have to give real life situations to people, right? You have to give them a different situation. I mean, if it's okay to share an example,
Sure.
I was telling somebody the other day, one of my colleagues the other day, just imagine, I mean, sorry, if all of my examples are pertaining to the industry that I operate with, but I mean, that's where I'm focused on a daily basis. 10 years from now or 15 years from now, you would not see any gas stations. You'd only see charging stations, right? So if you don't see gas stations, and if you only see charging stations, what does that mean? Right. So what is it I'm not expecting an answer from in that context, but I'm only trying to trigger the thought of a person. Can you even think like that? Why are we not even thinking? Like what you also in the beginning mentioned, are we operating with those thoughts? And when you don't have self-realization, you already close the doors to the thoughts of possibilities. Right. So all I think the least that we can do is at least, trigger these thoughts, trigger these imaginations by giving some live examples or probably giving some possible scenarios.
Yeah, and even, I mean,
Right. So
looking,
that is yeah, I mean, that is how you can do. Probably, for example, people talk about, we often talk about design thinking.
yeah. Mm.
Right. To me, design thinking is not just about a product design. Design thinking can apply to your day-to-day lives. Now, the question is, how many of us have the realization, a self realization about the possibility of design thinking in your day to day life? Right. So, that is, again, I mean, the least that we can do is trigger the thought process, trigger the imagination of the possibilities.
Yeah, I'm loving this conversation because it's making me think a lot of, where I have been using these techniques and possibly how things have transformed for me as a person, like uh starting automotive, right? So that's where the connect is. My first journey in the corporate world was in the automotive, Tata Motors. And today when I sit across and talk to a professional like you, it's bringing across so many memories of those years, how the industry used to be, and perhaps there were a lot of stuff that no one even imagined. And today, when we are sitting in 2023, we have already adapted it, and everyone is coming up, with newer technology, newer mechanisms, and also newer mindsets. I think that's very critical for transformation. So,
Exactly.
so I mean, of course, all your examples you're saying are all business, but that's so cool. Having said so, since you interact with so many different kinds of people, and when you look at this topic, transformation, what do you see? What are you seeing in the environment, in the younger mindsets? How do you see transformation coming through?
Well, I would say that, people, especially when I meet the younger generation, when I say younger generation, probably could be in the mid 20s or early 30s. I would say that obviously their thought processes are much different from what we think, and that I see as a huge advantage that one can have. Right. The question is, are we open to that thoughts that they operate with? Right. That's extremely important. If you're not realizing, again, come back to the self realization aspect, that are we realizing that that generation is much ahead of where we are in their thought process. The probably we are quite used to, we carry a bias saying that a particular product can be developed in 18 months, whereas they come with a thought that can be done in 3 months. What is your first reaction to that? It could be that, come on, this is not possible. I know how to do it, and it's not going to happen below 18 months. Or are you willing to give it a thought that, hey, if someone's saying it can be done in 3 months, let's talk. Let's find out how it can be done in 3 months. Right? Yes, I mean, they are the way they think, the speed with which they operate. Obviously, the internet, the social media, everything is helping shape their thoughts. But I think it'll be a better world that if probably we understand them and try to expand our thought and say that, yes, why can't these things be done? So that again brings me back to the point that accept the fact that every day is a new day. You can learn and unlearn from everyone around you.
The way you're sharing this, Srinivas, it actually puts a kind of a stamp that you are following all this day in, day out. So for our listeners today, what would be maybe 2 cents of yours around transformation?
Well, I would say be open to change. As I said, that accept the fact that tomorrow would be different. It's not that, I mean, it could be completely different, and be open to the thought that tomorrow you need to operate in a different manner. You might have a different struggle tomorrow. Embrace that. Number one. Number two, as I said, fear is a superficial layer. It's not deep within. It is a superficial layer. Go break it. Just go break it, and you will explore it, and you'll come out with fantastic ideas.
Wonderful. So I'm all out to break all the barriers that's stopping me, Srinivas. And again, I would like to thank you so much for your time and sharing your thoughts on transformation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Momita, and it was a pleasure.